Hello, listener. The fact you hear this means you're alive. If you're new here, consider subscribing and comment below where you're listening from. Let's begin the story. I'm John Kessler. I'm a hands-on guy and I keep my cool when things go sideways. Before the outbreak, I was fixing backup generators in warehouses, tinkering with old radios, and making lists. Gotta stay organized, right? When the trouble hit and rumors turned into pounding on doors, I decided on a simple rule. Go quiet, stay put, and ride out the storm. This hatch above me, it's sealed tight. That's key. I started a 30-day lockdown and I'm seeing it through. The details can wait. You'll see how it all plays out. What I want you to know up front is who's talking to you and how my brain works. I'm no hero, and I don't take unnecessary risks to look tough. I take stock, I test, and I adjust course when a plan isn't working. People ask, why would anyone do this on purpose? The quick answer is control. Out there, the chaos makes the decisions for you and fear sells you bad ideas at a premium. In here, I set the rhythm, check the essentials, and focus on one clear goal. Making it to day 31 with enough gas in the tank to move on. If you're new around here, welcome. Hit subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. It helps me keep these coming and gives me a sense of who's out there. If you're a regular, thanks for sticking with me. We'll kick things off with the promise I made to myself. Why this door stays shut even when cracking it would be tempting for a minute. And the basic tools that matter when you need to stretch food, air, and power. Then we'll go step by step. The reason I chose to lock myself in here was simple yet tough. I wanted 30 days of quiet I could control and I needed proof my plan would hold up under pressure. The streets were a mess, police channels were a scramble, and strangers were testing doors. In here I had food, water, backup power, and a door I could keep bolted. The choice was there, so I took it. My rule was clear-cut. Once I set those pins, I'm in for 30 days unless a fire or serious injury forces me to stop. I wrote it in big letters on the whiteboard. Stay locked, stay calm, fix the basics. There's still a backup exit, but using it means cutting a pin, yanking off a plate, and kicking out 2 bolts. That's a noisy operation. It dumps good air, kicks up dust, and leaves a trail that points right to me. So it's a last resort, not a shortcut. I also made a promise about honesty. When fear cranks up the volume, people start lying to themselves. I keep a simple log. Time, what broke, what I did about it, and what I'll check again. If I screw something up, my name goes in the book. Honest notes keep me straight when doubt starts creeping in. Family's part of this too. Before I locked things down, my sister asked me to hold out. We stood by her car, checking a paper map. Can you stay put for 30? She asked, bracing a hand on the hood. Yeah, I said, and I meant it because me staying put gives her one place to check on day 31. She said, no heroics. Just hold, I said. I will. There was a logic to it. Inside, I control the light, the sound, the heat, and the smells. Outside, those 4 things are like a beacon to people. Every time a door creaks, hinges scrape, air hisses, or food smells leak out, it's a slip that could draw trouble from the road. I also needed a real-world test. Plans look good on paper, but real use tells the truth. If a battery's going to fail, let it fail while I'm ready. If a filter clogs, I want to see it here and fix it with what I have stored. 30 days is enough time to find the weak spots and smooth them out. Money was a factor too. I'm not rich. I built this bunker piece by piece with cash and spare parts. A locked door that never moves is boring. A door that opens and closes is a show. I shut down the show. Some say a moving target is safer. Sometimes that's true out in the open with a good vehicle and a team. That's not my situation. My area's got alleys, blind corners, and abandoned lots. Outrunning trouble on bad ground is a movie fantasy. Good ground and a low profile are a better fit for me. There's a price to pay when you lock yourself in. Your mind starts hunting for exits. Boredom starts craving action. The lock says no. I use small goals to fight back. Eat on schedule. Clean tools after using them. Sweep when I start hating the room. Check the air every hour and log the number. Speak only when the line is secure. Read a page before bed, then sleep when the timer says sleep. Small wins add up. When the list is done, doubt starts to fade. Safety has a cost too. Sealed in here, I'm the whole crew. There's no one to hand me a wrench or cover my back. I slow down on purpose. I keep my hands in sight, move switches one at a time, and call out checks even when I'm alone. Power off, vent low, timer set, I say, and hearing it helps me catch mistakes. People outside put my decision to the test. Voices reach the grate at night. Some ask for water, some try to sell news. I don't open up. The rule is firm. If someone's honest, they'll move on and find a safer place. If they're not honest, opening the door won't fix that. Honesty still matters to me, but I gauge it from a distance. Not safe to open, I told a guy who smelled like gasoline when he moved. There's a hose at the east fence, I added, and I watched the gauge while he filled a jug and left. Radio calls test me too. Signals get choppy and cut out. People fake being weak to lure you out. I use a short list of questions. Where are you right now? What do you see to your left? What's behind you? If the answers are vague, I log it and keep the door shut. If they're clear, I still keep the door shut and set up a time to talk again. The core of it is the promise I made. I said I'd finish 30 days because sticking it out teaches you more than giving up on a hard night. Hard nights will come. Batteries will smoke. Water will cloud up. The air will feel heavy. If I can hold to the rules when that happens, then the system is real. On day 31, I want to walk out because the timer's done, not because fear found a way in. That's why I chose this lock, and that's why it stays set. I live in a short steel tunnel tucked under a shed. It's a tight space. A cot, a workbench, a couple of shelves, a cooking rack, and just enough aisle to squeeze by. Power and tools stay on the left. Food, water, and clothes on the right. The doors under the ladder leading to the hatch. There's a smaller door inside that, a little airlock I call the air room. Stand in the doorway and take it in. First up is the workbench. Thick top vise and a pegboard hanging above. The whiteboard's there too with my schedule and check times. On the bench are the things I grab most. Tape, cord, a small drill, a handsaw, fuses, and a meter. Blades, bits, and screws are in the drawers. Past the bench is the battery bay. 4 boxes sitting on a low rack, cables running to a simple panel with a couple of switches and a breaker. A little fan keeps them cool when they're charging. A smoke alarm's overhead. I test it every morning. Next to the bay is the pedal unit. 10 minutes of pedaling keeps the radios and headlamps topped off. Across from the power setup is food. Shelves stacked with rice, beans, canned meat, fruit, and greens. Heavy cans on the bottom, labels facing out. There's a marker on a string so I can write down the date when I open things. A small scale for weighing out portions. Above the shelf I keep a pot, a pan, and a strainer. The stove's a single burner on a steel tray. I cook with the vent low and a fan running. Water starts in a couple of barrels in the corner on the right. A loose cloth screen catches the big stuff I can rinse off. After that, it runs through a filter cartridge and past a UV light in a little box. The clean water drains into a capped jug. There's a second jug next to it for reserve. I log every batch every day. The cot's near the back wall under a shelf for clothes and first aid. A clean pair of socks and a warm shirt are always within reach. The first aid kit opens to a page that lists painkillers, bandages, and a little kit for dental stuff. A headlamp hangs by the cot. The air room's small, but it's key. It's got a mat and some hooks. Boots stay there. A box on the wall shows airflow and the carbon dioxide level. When I go in or out, I note the time and the numbers. The hatch is above with the pins I set for 30 days. Movement's got rules to keep things tidy. Tape marks a clear path from the cot to the door. Heavy bins are tight against the wall. Nothing taller than my chest unless it's bolted down. Tools stay low so I don't trip. Shoes point the same way so I can move without making noise. The noise rules are simple too. Pads under the stove and the workbench legs. Felt on the ladder stops the clicks. Metal on metal carries through steel, so I set tools down on wood blocks. At night, the headlamps use red so light doesn't leak. The restroom is just a lined bucket with a tight lid. A little fan pulls air through a filter when I use it. The bags tie shut and sit in a sealed bin. Nothing fancy, but it's clean. Space is tight, so I stashed a few things in the shed above. I don't go up there while I'm locked down. The list is on the board, so I know what's waiting. Inside, I only keep what I'll use in a week. That's the room. Small, simple, and clear. I know where everything is, I can reach it in the dark, and I can clean it fast. Now you've got the picture, I can tell you the rules that hold it all together. The air gave me a heads up in subtle ways at first. I woke up with a dull headache, felt sluggish, and the monitor showed a higher reading than the night before. It wasn't a spike, just a steady creep. That was my first warning, noted it. I don't mess around with air. I establish a baseline and stick to it. I set a timer to check the number every hour for a full day, jotted down each reading on the board, and kept my activity consistent so the data would mean something. I kept the lights dim, cooked just once, and skipped any project that took heavy lifting. If I change too many things at once, I'm flying blind. The morning reading was around 800. By noon, it was up to 1100. Late in the day, it hit 1400 and stayed there. Headaches tend to track with that rise for me. The small fan pulling air through the filter box ran on low during each check. The system was working, but not well enough to be comfortable. Next, I looked at the intake path. I checked the pre-filter at the wall and found it packed with dust. Not a ton, but enough to slow things down. I brushed it into a bag, cleaned the frame, and reseated it tight. Made a note about the fan. 30 minutes later, the number dropped by 100. Seals are key. I ran a smoke test with a stick of incense while the fan was running. The smoke leaned toward the vents and stayed still where the seal was tight. One corner near the door drifted the wrong way, so I pressed some fresh tape into the gap and really worked it in. The drifting stopped. Another reading, another small drop. Breathing has a cost when air is limited. I cut that cost whenever I can. I moved slower, used hand tools, and broke up tasks into short bursts with rest periods in between. During checks, I sat still for 5 minutes so the number reflected the room, not my lungs. Nighttime needs extra care. I set the fan to low for 10 minutes every hour while I slept. A kitchen timer took care of it. The number climbed more slowly and leveled off around 1300 by dawn. The filter box has granules that trap carbon dioxide. They do their job and then they're done. I weighed the cartridge last month and wrote the weight on the label. Weighed it again just now. The difference told me the media had absorbed gas and moisture. I stirred up the granules to expose a fresh surface and put the box back. The next reading dropped another 100 points. My approach to air is straightforward. Room first, then filters, then fans, then how I behave. If the room is leaking in the wrong spots, no filter can save it. If the filters are clogged, the fans are just wasting power. If the fans are fine and the number keeps climbing, I change what I'm doing. This keeps me from chasing dead ends. I also check for heat near the wiring and any signs of dampness. Dampness likes to hide under bins and makes the cloth feel cold. I put my hand on the fan motor during each check. I look up into the corners for any film and wipe it down if I see it. People always ask what a good number is. In a sealed room like this, I want the monitor to stay between 800 and 1200 while I'm awake, and under 1400 while I'm sleeping. If it starts climbing, I have options. Shorter cooking times, colder food, slower movements, and longer fan cycles. If it keeps climbing past those limits, I have to think about ending the isolation. That's the line I won't cross. Sound tells me more than the dials. A fan that starts to whine needs the dust cleaned out. A latch that rattles needs a pad. The latter clicks if I step on it wrong. I tape up what I can, pad what I can, and move deliberately. I do one more checkup near the window and down near the floor to see if the numbers are stacking up. If the reading near the floor is much higher, I stir the air with the fan for a minute so pockets don't build up near the cot. I keep the cot near the path of airflow. Talking takes breath. I keep radio calls brief and plan them out. I jot down notes before I key the mic so I don't ramble. That saves air and power at the same time. By the end of the baseline day, the numbers were within range. I added a new line to the checklist. Air check at the top of the hour, fan on low 10 minutes on, 50 minutes off at night, sweep the seals once a day, weigh the filter every week. None of this is rocket science. It's repeatable. This is the baseline I trust. If the numbers start drifting later, I have a clear starting point and a list of moves that helped. With the air steady, I can move on to the next problem without dragging this one behind me. Air is the first thing I protect every day. I start with a short list I can practically do in my sleep. I crack open the log, note the time, check the number on the screen, and jot it down. I run the back of my hand along the seams and around the door, feeling for any drafts. If I sense a leak, I tape it up right then, no putting it off. Filters do their job and then they're done. I treat them like perishable food. Each one gets a date, a weight, and a simple pass or fail. If a filter feels damp, I dry the housing, not the filter itself. If it looks used up, I swap it out and make a note of it. I keep the fan on low most of the time. High is just for short bursts when the number spikes or when I'm cooking. High speed is noisy and it sucks up power, so I keep it brief and planned. When I shut it off, I wait 5 minutes and watch the number. If it bounces back hard, I hunt down the cause and fix it instead of letting the fan fight a leak all day. Cooking takes air. I boil simple meals with lids on and keep the flame low. A lid saves fuel and keeps the steam down. I pull the pot off the heat early and wrap it in a towel. Less steam means less humidity, and less humidity helps the filter do its job. I set up quiet hours for the night. The timer runs the fan for 10 minutes, then shuts it off for 50 every hour. That keeps the number steady while I sleep and saves the batteries. On cold nights, I warm up the room with layers of clothes, not with extra heat. Little habits keep the air clean. I shake dust off my clothes in the air room, not over the bed. I wipe down the shelves with a damp cloth top to bottom, then wash the cloth and hang it by the door. I don't want to kick up dust into the air I'm trying to breathe. I watch my body the same way I watch the screen. A headache, a heavy chest, or sluggish thinking tells me as much as a number. If I feel any of those, I sit down, drink some water, and run the fan longer, then check again. If the feeling sticks around, I knock off any chores that make me breathe hard and I take it easy. I keep a simple mask handy for dirty jobs. I use it when I change the filter or clean the fan. I never use it as an excuse to slack off on keeping the room clean. Once a week, I do a smoke test on the seals. I light a single stick of incense, move it along the seams, and watch how the smoke pulls. I press fresh tape where the stream wavers and retest it. When I'm done, I air out the room until the smell is gone. I put notes in the log so I can see if the same spot keeps failing. The door has a small inner lip that I can set to cut down on backflow when I go into the air room. I use it every time. Boots come off on the mat. I scrub the soles with a small brush and tap them on the rubber. The brush stays in the air room. Some days the number will creep up no matter what I do. That happens when the weather shifts or dust gets into the intake. I pull the intake screen, rinse it out, and dry it before I put it back. If there's grit in the track, I clean that out too. I only put wet parts back when they're dry to the touch. I keep backups of parts that tend to fail: 2 fans, extra tape, spare filters, an extra cord, and a hand crank fan. The hand fan is slow, but it moves air when the power's low. I used it once when I had a battery problem. It saved the night. Numbers matter, but I don't get hung up on chasing them. I pick target ranges, set up routines to hit them, and stick to those routines. If a number drifts, I change one thing at a time. I practice belly breathing during quiet work. I sit up straight, loosen my jaw, and take slow breaths through my nose. Breathing slowly uses less air and keeps my head clear. If I need to vent smoke in a hurry, I crack the inner door, crank the fan up to high for a couple of minutes, and point a desk fan to push the smoke toward the vent. After the smoke clears, I go back to the low cycle and recheck the seals, and I don't burn candles for light. Flame eats up oxygen and gives back very little. I use headlamps on low with a clean lens. I keep spare batteries warm and rotate them on a schedule. Air and sound are linked in this place. A loud fan tells the world I'm here. I pad the mount and set the housing on rubber. I test it at the hatch, pressing my ear to the grate. If I can hear it up there, I change the pad or lower the speed. I treat sickness like an air problem too. If I cough, I point my head toward the intake and let the fan pull the air away. I keep tissues in a sealed bag and wash my hands on a timer. Once a day, I do a full check. Screen, fan, seals, filter weight, and notes. It takes 10 minutes when I stay focused. I do it even on easy days. Skipped steps have a way of coming back when I can least afford them. On day 31, I want to open that hatch with a clear head and steady hands. That'll happen if the room stays safe day after day. Air comes first because without it, I can't fix anything else. Keep it simple and steady and the rest will fall into place. Power went down on a quiet afternoon. A soft hiss came from the battery bay, followed by the smell of hot plastic. I flipped the main switch off. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, ran the fan on high for 60 seconds, then dialed it back to low. I opened the log and wrote down the time and the word smoke. Heat means trouble. I touched the top of the battery, warm, not burning. That was the one I'd let charge longer than the others after a pedal session. That was on me. I said it out loud. My mistake, and moved on. First thing, isolate. 2 levers split the battery banks. I killed the bad one, then split the remaining 3 so the room wouldn't go dark if another one failed. The low lights stayed on. The radio charger stayed off until I knew more. I slid the smoking battery onto a tile board I keep around for heat incidents. The temperature probe climbed for a minute, then leveled off. No crackling, no bulging, just a thin wisp of smoke. Next, I unplugged the charger leads and checked them for nicks. The leads were clean. I traced the cord back to the wall and felt for heat. Nothing unusual. I unplugged the charger and set it aside. I needed to clear the air without announcing my location. I kept the outer hatch closed, opened the inner door, and aimed a desk fan to blow the smoke toward the vent. The air cleared in about 5 minutes. The charger has 3 settings. I'd left it on the highest one after pedaling. From now on, pedaling ends on the middle setting or just a low trickle charge. I taped a note to the charger. Finish on low. I checked the other batteries for heat, bulging, or any weird smells. They all seemed normal. I dusted off the cooling fans, then tested the smoke alarm. It chirped. I reset the switches so 2 batteries were powering the room and 1 was idle. The bad battery needed a safe spot. I don't mess with opening up the cases or poking around the vents. I put the battery in a metal tray filled with sand. The tray sits on the floor away from the shelves with a clear path to the air room. If the battery flares up, I can drag the tray to the doorway and vent the smoke with the hatch closed. Priorities changed for the day. I cut the lights in half. The fridge ran short cycles. I only charged stuff I couldn't power by hand. Headlamps got charged by pedal power only. The radio got 30 minutes in the morning and 30 at night. I set up a quiet time for charging. The fans only go to high during that hour, so the noise is one steady block, not random bursts. If anyone's near the shed, a constant hum is safer than a bunch of starts and stops. I stay by the batteries during that time with my hand on the switch. I wrote up a checklist for the battery bay. Dust fans, check battery temps, look for swelling, sniff around the batteries, confirm the switch positions, and sign it with the time and my initials. I have a second list hanging by the pedal unit. Lube chain lightly, wipe off extra oil, check pads, and tighten the strap. The pedal unit is even more important now. 10 minutes of steady pedaling tops off the small devices. I keep the pedaling slow so the chain stays quiet. Rubber pads under the stand keep it from squeaking. Wiring rules: no cords across the walkway, no coils near heat, no plugs where I might kick them. I use a tape loop to strain relieve each plug. I label both ends of every cord so I can trace lines fast in low light. I keep spare fuses in a tin tape to the power panel. I use 3 power levels. Level 1 keeps the air moving and one light on. Level 2 adds the tools for food and water. Level 3 is for comfort, extra light, scanning the radio, a hot drink. If there's a problem, I drop to level 1, no questions asked. At night, I set a battery watch. I write down the time in the log and listen. Batteries give off a pop or hiss before they overheat. If I hear something, I kill the power and take a breath, then move. A mirror on a stick lets me check the backs of the batteries. It shows stains, dust, and loose ties I might miss. Once a week, I pull each battery out a few inches, sweep the rack, and push it back in so the airflow stays clean. I keep a small fire extinguisher on the wall and a bigger one on the floor near the door. Dry powder is messy and chokes the filters, so I only use it if I see flames. If a battery ignites, I aim at the base, sweep once, cover it with sand, then vent the smoke and write it off. After a screw-up like this, I drink some water and sit down for 5 minutes. Then I rewrite the rule that failed. The new rule is, no high mode finish. Split battery banks before charging. Never leave a charger running when I'm not around. When the room felt stable again, I tested the bad battery. The case had cooled off and the smell was fading. I marked it suspect and took it out of service. 2 batteries are powering the room now. One's on standby. Power is a tool when you treat it right. I cut down on my usage, isolated the problem, and kept the rest of the system alive. From here on out, the plan is simple. Run daily checks, charge during the quiet window, keep the batteries split, and log every change. If I hear a hiss or smell heat again, I know the drill. Power works best when you stick to a schedule. I set aside 1 hour each day for noisy stuff and charging. Everything that makes a racket happens at once, and the rest of the day stays quiet. The fans go on high, the chargers fire up, and I stand guard by the switches. If something sounds off, I kill the power and fix it before the hour's up. I time the noisy hour when the wind's howling. Midday's usually best. Night's quiet, but sound travels far. The afternoon gives me some cover too. The power drains fall into 3 groups. First, the must-haves, keeping the air moving, 1 light on the workbench, and the radio for scheduled check-ins. Second, the helpful tools, the water purifier, the little fridge, and the headlamp charger. Third, the extras, a second light and 10 minutes of music. If something goes wrong, the extras get cut first. Then the helpful tools go manual, and the must-haves stay on until I sort out the problem. I keep the cords short and pinned down. Long loops are just begging to get tripped on. Every plug has a tag that says what it powers and what setting it should be on. There's a matching tag at the power panel. The tags keep me from having to guess. The pedal unit fills in the gaps. 10 minutes of steady pedaling can charge up a radio or top off a couple of headlamps. I set the resistance so it's smooth, not hard. Smooth pedaling makes less noise and lasts longer. I keep an eye on my breathing while I pedal. If I start to huff and puff, I slow down, because air's more important than a quick charge. The stand sits on rubber pads so the vibrations don't carry through the floor. The chain gets a drop of oil every week and a quick wipe. If it starts to squeak, I fix it right away. A little sound can turn into a pattern, and patterns carry outside. Silence is safety, I say as I reach for the oil, and I take care of it before it becomes a problem. I stick to a simple rule for the batteries. I never run them dead on purpose. I stop when they're about half empty and let them rest. Shallow cycles are easier on them. I give them a full charge twice a week when the wind's covering up the noise, and I keep an eye on the heat and the smell. I keep the lights low. The headlamps point down, and the workbench light has a shield so it doesn't spill onto the ceiling. I tape the button on my headlamp so I don't accidentally hit it and blast the room with light. The fridge sucks up more power than a fan. I run it in short bursts during the noisy hour and keep the food packed tight so it stays cold. There's a thermometer inside. If the temperature climbs, I eat that food first. I don't store anything I can't keep cold. Cooking uses fuel, not electricity, but it adds heat and moisture. I plan meals that don't need a long flame, and I always use lids. A fan pulls the steam away. If the air quality starts to drop, I kill the heat and finish cooking in the pot wrapped in a towel. The radio has its own set of rules. I charge it during the noisy hour, use it on low power, and keep my calls short and to the point. "What's your location?" I ask, and if they can't give me a straight answer, I end the call. Clear questions save battery power and keep me focused. I do maintenance at the same time every day. I wipe down the power panel, dust off the fan grills, check the strain relief on the cords, make sure the battery switches are set right, and sign the log. If I stay focused, it only takes about 5 minutes. When I need a little extra juice for a job, I get the room ready. I clear off the floor, move anything that could catch fire away from the work area, and set a timer. I give myself a hard deadline. If the timer goes off and I'm not done, I stop what I'm doing and pick it up the next day. I've got a plan for when things go dark. If I hear people near the shed or drones overhead, I cut the power down to one light or none and sit still. The air stays on low. The fridge stays off. I hold that position as long as it takes. Staying quiet keeps me safe. I keep spare parts in a bin, all labeled and counted. Fuses, cable ties, tape, 2 extra fans, a spare charger, a switch, and a small multimeter. There's a paper card on top with the numbers, and I update it whenever I grab something. If the count's off, I find out why and fix it. This isn't about having the right gear. It's about building habits that keep the power steady. 1 hour for noise, short cycles for the batteries, quiet pedaling to fill in the gaps, clear priorities when things get stressful. With the power under control, I can move on to water. Right now. Water can change fast when the source gets funky. The taste shifts, a smell pops up, and the clear look goes cloudy. I spotted a thin film on the pre-filter screen and caught a faint, earthy scent in the clean jug. That was enough to shut things down and start checking. I treat water like a chain. Source, screen, line, filter, UV light, jug. If one link breaks, the whole system's down. First link's the intake under the shed. A mesh cap sits over the end of the tube. Last week it was clean. Today it was coated. I shut the valve to the filter, capped the clean jug, and jotted down a quick list on the board. Mesh, barrel, lines, jugs. The mesh comes first because it protects everything else. I pulled it off, rinsed it through a cloth, and poured boiling water over it. Small bits of stuff clung to the cloth, and a few tiny bugs floated off. I can't open the shed while I'm locked down, but I can dip a sample from the barrel through a service port. I used a long spoon with a clean cloth to scoop out a cup of water. It smelled like wet leaves, not fuel or rot. That means it's organic buildup, not a dead animal or a spill. Still a problem, but one I can handle inside. The lines will tell you if there's a problem if you look close. Clear tubing makes it easy. I checked for slime, bubbles, and any discoloration. There was a faint stain at one bend, which means biofilm's starting to grow. I flushed that section with hot water, added 1 drop of dish soap, rinsed it 3 times, and let it drain. You can't always trust the jugs. One bad lid can throw off the whole reading. I keep 2 main jugs and 1 for reserve. I always smell them first, then taste with a clean spoon. One jug had that earthy scent. I marked it heat and set it aside. The other jug smelled clean. Some quick tests confirm what my nose tells me. I use a pH strip and a general hardness strip. They both look normal. That doesn't guarantee it's safe, but it helps me narrow down the problem. When the smell and the film point to organic stuff, I focus on the steps that target organic load first. Pasteurization saves fuel. I can't spare the energy for rolling boils. A thermometer gives me the target temperature. I heat a pot of water to that mark, hold it there, cap it, and let it cool before I pour it into a jug. The jug and ladle have to be clean. I log the time and temperature. When the water intake's down, I have to stretch what I have. I switch to meals that use less water. 1 pot cooking saves a rinse. I wipe out the pot while it's still warm, then finish with a splash of water. Dishes just get a spray, not a soak. I wash my hands on a timer and change the cloth every day. Cross-contamination is the big risk in small rooms. I keep one ladle for the raw water side and one for the clean side. The clean ladle hangs above the filter. It never touches the raw sink. When I swap a filter or handle the screen, I wear a glove, then wash my hands. Light helps me see what the test strips miss. I fill a clear glass, shine a headlamp through it, and watch the beam. If I see anything floating, I let that water settle. After a while, I pour off the top layer and run it through the cleaning steps. Settling doesn't make it safe on its own, but it helps the filter. The wind kicks dust into everything. The mesh clogs up faster when the wind's blowing hard. I set up a rinsing schedule for windy days. Clean it at noon, clean it at dusk, then clean it again the next morning. I'm strict about storage. Full jugs are always capped and labeled. Open jugs stay in a covered bin, and I finish one before I start another. No sipping from the jugs. Cups only washed and dried every night. I keep a few water purification tablets as a last resort. If I'm worried about a batch, I treat it with a tablet, wait the required time, and mark the jug. The treated water tastes flat, so I shake the jug to get some air back in. That water gets used for cooking first. The smell of fuel is a hard stop. If I ever smell fuel in the water, I switch to stored water only, write down the time, and plan to end the isolation early. There's no way to get fuel out of the water line with my home setup. After the checks, I had a clean mesh, flushed lines, one jug marked as bad, and a plan to rinse the mesh more often. The intake was feeding the room again, but I needed a more reliable method to keep the clean water clean. That's what I'll cover next, step by step, in a way you can copy even when you're under pressure. Clean water keeps me sane, so the method's gotta be simple, reliable, and safe. I use 5 steps in this order: settle, screen, filter, sterilize, and store. I do the same thing every time, and every batch gets logged so I can track down any screw-ups. Step 1. Settle. If the raw water looks cloudy or has stuff floating in it, I pour it into a clear container and leave it alone. 10 to 30 minutes lets the grit sink to the bottom. I put the container where it won't get knocked over and write down the time. If there's a clear layer on top, I gently pour it into another container and leave the sludge behind. Don't try to get every last drop. It's better to waste a little than to risk getting sick. Step 2. Screen. I put a clean cloth in a small funnel. I rinse the cloth first, then pour the settled water through it. The cloth catches hair, bugs, and any bits you can see. The funnel and jar get a rinse and a wipe. Step 3. Filter. My filter cartridge has an arrow showing which way the water's supposed to flow. I keep the raw water on the left and the clean water on the right and never mix up the hoses. I screw the filter in snug by hand. I prime it by running a little water through and dumping out the first cup. I keep the pressure steady by squeezing a bulb or using a slow pump. If the filter clogs up and stays clogged after I rinse it, I swap it out and write down the date. I keep the spare filters in sealed bags. Step 4. Sterilize. I use heat or UV light. Heat's the easy way. I pour the filtered water into a covered pot, clip a thermometer to the side, and heat it to the safe temperature for a short time. Then I take the pot off the heat and leave the lid on while it cools down. UV light works too if the unit's clean and has power. I run the water through the light box at the right speed and give it a second pass if the water was cloudy to begin with. I don't use UV light if the water's dirty because the particles block the light. I keep water purification tablets around for small emergencies. 1 tablet treats 1 liter. I drop it in, cap the bottle, and wait the full time. The tablets leave the water tasting flat, so I shake the bottle to get some air back into it and use that water for cooking first. Step 5. Store. I only put clean water in clean containers. I wash the jug with hot water and a little soap, rinse it really well, and let it dry upside down on a rack. Before I fill it, I smell the inside of the jug. If it smells wrong, I either clean it again or use a different jug. I fill it, cap it, label it with the time and method, and move it to the clean shelf. Open jugs stay in a covered bin and get used before I open any sealed bottles. No drinking straight from the jugs, I only use cups. The line between what's dirty and what's clean is where most people mess up. The rule is simple. If your hands, tools, or hoses touch the raw water, they never touch the clean side. I put colored tape on the raw water hose and a different color on the clean one. The raw water funnel stays with the raw water gear. The clean water funnel stays in a bag with the clean ladle. If I break this rule even once, I wash everything and start over. I use this method in small batches. Small batches are easier to keep safe and to keep track of. Each batch gets its own line in the log with the time and the method I used. The water can taste a little off after you heat it. A pinch of salt in a big jug can bring the taste back. I don't add any sweeteners to the stored water. If a jug sits for more than 3 days, I pour it back into a pot, heat it to the right temperature again, and let it cool. The gear needs to be taken care of. I rinse out the filter housing after I use it and shake out any extra water. I let it air dry. I wipe down the UV light box with a dry cloth and check it for cracks. If a seal looks worn out, I replace it. I drain the hoses and hang them with the ends pointing down so the water doesn't get stale. I keep a bad batch bucket. If something goes wrong, say I drop the cloth in the clean water or I slip and touch something, I pour the water into that bucket. There's no point in arguing with a mistake. I keep the bucket covered until I can use the water for cleaning or flushing. Drinking water's only for drinking. How I plan my fuel use matters. Heating water takes more energy than using the UV light. On sunny days, I use the solar panel to power the light box. On low power days, I prefer to heat the water, but I'm careful to hold it at the right temperature. I never try to do too high energy jobs like cooking and sterilizing water on the same burner at the same time unless I can keep an eye on both of them. Checking the smell is a reliable way to check the water. Safe water doesn't smell like fuel, metal, or rot. If you smell any of those things, stop what you're doing, switch to your stored water, and try to figure out what's going on. Keeping my hands clean ties the whole system together. I wash my hands before I touch anything on the clean side, after I touch anything on the raw side, and any time I cough or touch my face. Soap, water, and a clean towel are all you need. If you run these 5 steps the same way every time, you'll be able to trust your water. When you trust your water, your stress levels go down and you can face the next problem without being afraid that it's going to come from the cup in your hand. The pressure from outside started as just noise, but it turned into patterns I could figure out. The first pattern was voices near the shed at night. 2 people stood by the hatch talking like they were way too calm for people who really needed help. One guy said, "We just need water," and the other answered, "Knock again." Then they'd knock 3 times, pause, then 3 times again, always the same. Real need doesn't keep a rhythm like that. I stayed quiet and wrote down the pattern. Next came a cry on repeat from the fence line. The same line played over and over with the same pause between the words. I killed the fan for a minute and listened through the vent. "Help me," the voice said. Then the same thing again, nothing different. I wrote, "Fake," and kept the door shut. After that came the drones, little toys hovering around carrying a tiny speaker that played weak moans and tapping sounds. It wasn't loud, but it got on your nerves when the room was quiet. My rule's simple. If I hear a drone, I cut the power to anything I don't absolutely need, freeze in place, and write down the time and direction. If I hear one from the same direction twice, I figure someone's watching. I don't answer with light, sound, or movement. You can tell real people apart from the loops by little things. They pause in the wrong places. They ask one question, then add another without meaning to. They shuffle their feet and cough. Even then, I don't open up. I have 3 lines I use at the vent. First, I say, "Not safe to open." If they ask again, I add, "There's water east of the shed, 10 steps, follow the hose." If they keep pushing, I shut them down with, "Move on now." One night, a guy said, "I can trade you medicine." And he shook a bottle so the pills rattled. I said, "Put it down and step back." And he answered, "Open up first." And I said, "No." And he left. I keep track of footprints in the dust where the sun hits the shed door. Every morning I look for new marks. Bare feet tell me one kind of visitor. Work boots say another. Small prints mean a scout. Drag marks mean someone's hurt or lying. I also map out the sounds I hear. The road to the south carries the sound of engines. The alley to the west carries footsteps. The fence line carries the sound of brush when someone leans on it. When I hear a new sound, I mark it on a paper map. After a week, I can see the paths people are using and the places they're avoiding. Radio calls are another way they try to push me. Voices ask me to check in and offer routes that sound way too good to be true. I keep 3 questions ready. Where are you right now? What do you see to your left? What's behind you? If they give me clear answers, I write them down, but I still don't move. A clear answer doesn't mean it's a safe route. I wait for a second source to give me the same information. A couple of times someone called me by my name. That means someone's nearby or they're just guessing. I don't answer when they say my name on the radio. I use a short call sign for this month and stick with it. If someone keeps calling me by my name, I end the call. The worst trick they tried was a child's voice on a loop. It played one afternoon near the wall. I didn't open the door. I wrote down the time and checked the mirror inside the vent. It showed a plastic speaker tied to a string. Someone pulled the string back into the bushes. I used drills to keep panic from making the decisions for me. Hear a knock, breathe, count to 10, check the air, check the power, check the water, then decide. I wait until after I've done the checks to decide because they slow me down and keep me from acting too fast. I use LEDs covered with tape and keep my headlamps on low red. If I have to move near the hatch, I turn everything off and feel my way around with my hands. Smells can give me away too. Cooking meat sends out a signal. I cook simple meals that don't smell too strong and I run the fan on low while I'm cooking. Some people are honest and still not safe to be around. A woman said, I need a bandage, and she sat down by the door and cried. I said, there's a first aid kit by the east fence, and she said, I can't walk. And I said, wait. After a long time, she stood up and went to the fence. She took the kit and left. I keep 2 small stashes of supplies for strangers. One has water and a bandage kit. The other has a note with directions to a safer block and a warning about the bad spots to avoid. I restock them when I can. The noise patterns keep changing. The same 2 voices stopped coming around. New people were trying the fence at odd hours. A cart rolled up once, stopped and rolled away. I stuck to my plan. The loops got no response. Real people got a clear no and directions to the supplies. The drones got silence. You're going to hear a story that sounds like what you want to believe. That story can get you killed. I don't make decisions based on stories. I go by my checks, my notes, and my rules. If you're alone, pick some lines you can remember even when you're exhausted. Say them out loud. Not safe to open. Water east of the shed. Move on now. Pressure can turn into a breach. One afternoon, I heard metal scraping on the grate, then a ratchet, then a pause, then the ratchet again. I killed the lights and went to the back wall. Stop, a man said outside. The chain's tight. A second guy said, cut it. And the first one answered, too loud. Then they left. I use a filter to catch radio traps. If someone offers me news or directions, I ask for a detail that would be hard to fake but easy to check. I might ask, read me the street sign with the 2 dents. Or, tell me what color the tarp is on the burned-out truck. If they get it wrong, I end the call. If they get it right, I write it down, but I still don't move. I want the same information from 2 different sources on 2 different days before I change my plan. The outside pressure never stops, it just changes. The loops fade away when they don't work. Honest people move on when they get what they need. Predators move on when you stay quiet. My job is to keep the door shut, the light low, the air steady, and my head clear. Next, I'm going to show you how I use these rules to set a trap, break up an attack from a small group, and keep my side of the door safe without ever unlocking it. Hold the line, stay quiet, and wait for real proof. Stay steady and trust the rules. The quiet shattered in the early afternoon when a drone clipped the roof and a tap echoed on the grate. I killed the extra lights and moved to the back wall. A thin shadow stretched across the vent. Someone was testing the hatch, slow and careful. My plan for this was simple: make the bunker look empty and sick, then give them a reason to bug out. First, the decoy. I had a small speaker behind the battery bay that played a short looped cough and a weak air alarm. The recording was scratchy and uneven. I set the timer to play it at random intervals so it would sound more human. Then I dimmed the workbench light and covered it with a box so it cast a faint bar of light on the floor. From the hatch, it would look like a dying bulb. The noise from above got louder. Metal creaked. A ratchet clicked once. A man said, "Easy," and another answered, "Hurry up." The drone slid over to the east side and hovered there. Someone was watching the intake, waiting for a reaction. I gave them one. The cough loop played, the alarm beeped, and the fan kicked down to low. Silence stretched out for 60 seconds. I slowed my breathing and listened for a change in the drone's pitch. The rules for a standoff were written on a card by the door. Don't rush, don't argue. "Not safe to open," I said toward the vent, then nothing. A flashlight beam swept across the ladder. The light caught the dust on the rungs and came back a second time. The angle told me there were 2 people at the hatch and 1 at the fence line. Breaking the chain would bring everyone down on me, so they tried to pry open the outer bar. The bar moved a little, then snapped back. "Forget it," one of them said. "We'll wait." The decoy would make them think they had time, and my silence would keep them guessing. I pulled the air room door almost shut and pressed a piece of felt against the frame so it would close quietly. The cough loop played again. After 12 minutes, I triggered a second recording. A soft thud and a scraping sound, then nothing. The pressure ramped up. Footsteps circled the shed. A thin wire snaked through the grate. Someone was trying to snag the inner latch. The wire caught and tugged. The latch didn't budge. I'd wedged it in place when I set the pins. "He's dead in there," one of them said. "Or he's out of air," the other one answered. The drone dropped down near the intake. If they blocked it with a cloth, the room would turn bad in minutes. I was ready for that. I had a shield plate hanging inside the duct, and I could set it with one lever. The plate slid into place and the intake kept a narrow opening. I ran the fan on low for 30 seconds, then cut it again. They heard the change and backed off a step. "He's fading," a voice said. I let them think that. They knocked twice, then twice again, then twice again. I didn't answer. The light came back, sweeping slowly. Someone outside coughed, trying to match my cough. I stayed still and counted off another 60 seconds in the dark. Wheels rolled up from the alley and stopped. More boots crunched on the gravel. The first crew had called in backup. Time for my last trick. I grabbed an old radio, tuned it to a dead channel, and held the mic near the fan. Static hissed like an air leak. I pulsed it 3 times, short, then long, then short again. The drone lifted off and drifted to the west. Someone swore. Too many people at the hatch meant they were going to start making mistakes. I ended the show. The final piece of the decoy was a flat tone, like a cheap smoke detector dying. No cough, no fan, no light, just silence. 5 minutes passed, 10. The drone climbed into the air and disappeared. "Nothing left," a man said. Boots moved off the gravel. Wheels turned. The alley went quiet. The card by the door said, "Wait twice as long, check the mirror, then wait again." I did, with my hands flat on my knees, counting down the seconds. There was no shadow in the vent. When the second wait was over, I turned the fan back on low and sat with my back to the door. Next came the repairs. The outer bar had been bent a little. The chain had a bright scratch on it. The intake screen was dented. I couldn't get to those things while I was locked in, so I made a list for day 31. Tighten the bolts on the bar, replace the chain, put a second screen over the intake. Inside, I checked the seals again and wiped down the rungs on the ladder. Stress leaves its mark even when no one gets inside. My hands shook for a minute. I had some food and water, then spent 10 minutes lying flat on the cot. I used a timer to keep me honest. The log entry read, "Drone, grate test, wire probe, cart arrival, static bluff, withdrawal." Under that, I wrote down 3 changes. Moved the speaker closer to the vent, shortened the second loop, Add West Block safer to the note by the fence. Ending a standoff without a fight isn't just luck. It's about following the rules and having patience. I didn't chase them. I didn't answer their signals. I didn't threaten them or beg them. I made the bunker look like a lost cause and let them convince themselves to leave. 2 nights later, I got the signal I was waiting for on the low band, faint but clear. A woman said, "Sparrow checking Ridge Link," and I answered, "Go." She said, "Road East holds 2 days quiet, water safe." I asked, "On landmark?" And she said, "Red truck on blocks, blue door, stone church." I said, "Copy." She asked, "Status?" And I said, "Locked by choice, air good, power steady, water stable." She said, "Hold." I waited for a second confirmation. The next night, the same call came through. 2 more days, she added, then a morning window. I wrote down the time. That was enough, a direction and a quiet path. While I waited, I got the room ready to go. Tools back on their hooks, logs back on the shelf, extra gear back in the bin. The suspect battery stayed out of service. I topped off the water jugs. I packed a small bag with food, dry socks, a warm layer, and the radio. I left the backup exit untouched. If the door opens, it'll be on the day I planned, not on some night when fear pushes me to do something stupid. On day 31, I'll take down the note by the vent, lift the inner door, and take out the pins. The outer hatch will swing open and fresh air will hit my face. I'll close it gently and leave the supply caches by the fence for anyone who's still moving. Then I'll walk east toward the red truck on blocks and the blue door by the stone church, and I won't look back more than once. The room held because I held to the rules. Hold the line, then move when the proof says it's time. If you enjoyed the story, please like, subscribe, and comment where you're listening from. See you in the next one.